Chapter 385, Zhao, your sword. Voila! Might gushed out from his palm in the form of a blinding radiance, heading straight for Zhang Xian. Zhizhuan realm, otherwise known as the 10,000 Ding realm, was the final realm of the 9 dawn of fighters. At this realm, one's physical body in Jinqi would reach the very limits of a mortal, and the strength that one possessed would be unmatched by any Zongshi. Lin Ruotian was only a half Zhizhuan, but the strength he wielded was reminiscent of a huge river, ceaseless and overwhelming. Before his attack could reach Zhang Xian, the Jinqi he emanated had already reduced the surface of the stone floor to dust, as though a massive whip striking ceaselessly on it. Having driven the Jinqi in his body to the maximum capacity, a shrill call, similar to a whistle, sounded in the air. Harmonization of breath and blood, emanation of Jinqi. This is the distinctive trait of one who is about to reach Zhizhuan realm. Mo Tianxue's face paled. He was the #1 expert among the Zongshi realm pinnacle in Tianwu Kingdom, and he had a deep understanding of the Zhizhuan realm. It was said that those who had reached that level would possess blood as thick as mercury, and when one drove one's Jinqi, the call of a whistle would sound in the air. All along, he thought that Lin Ruotian, who had achieved a breakthrough with Xianyuan Kingdom's help, would possess an unstable cultivation, making him of little threat. But upon seeing this sight, he realized that he couldn't be any more wrong. The other party's strength could be considered to be at the top even among the half-Zizans. Under his current state, there was a possibility of him breaking through the final barrier at any moment to reach the pinnacle of the fighter realm. It was no wonder why he, despite possessing the cultivation of half-Zhizhuan realm and the backing of Xianyuan Kingdom, chose to poison the guardian beast secretly. It wasn't that he was afraid of the vengeance from Tianwu royal family, but that he wanted to confuse them. By the time he reached Zhizhuan realm, he would be able to crush all that stood in his way in Tianwu Kingdom easily. Even the Master-Teacher Pavilion would be helpless before him then. If Guild Leader Lu hadn't forced him to show his hand, he could have taken that final step within several months. By then he could simply openly demand the throne and no one would be able to stop him. Scary. Cold sweat drenched Mo Tianxue's back, and he trembled in fear. If not for this Guild Leader Lu charging straight at Lin Ruotian, Mo Tianxue would never have discovered this secret. It was laughable how he thought that as long as the guardian beast managed to survive, the other party wouldn't dare to make a move. Guild Leader Lu won't be a match for him. Amidst his fright, he was filled with worry for the latter. Guild Leader Lu might be powerful even among Zongshi realm pinnacle experts, but he was still lacking in comparison to experts of Lin Ruotian's caliber. Putting everything aside, just in terms of strength, Lin Ruotian should have already reached 9,000 Ding. That would be more than sufficient for him to subdue Guild Leader Lu. Thinking so, he returned his attention to the duo's duel. Incredible, facing Lin Ruotian's might face on, Zhang Xian's face turned grave. At Zongshi realm pinnacle, his strength had risen to 5,000 Ding, making him on par with an ordinary half-Zhizhuan. However, Lin Ruotian had reached the peak of half-Zhizhuan realm, making him a difficult opponent for Zhang Xian. At the first encounter, Zhang Xian could already feel heavy pressure from the other party's might. The other party's Jinqi gushed at him as though a burst dam, and he couldn't avoid it even if he wanted to. Thus, he could only forcefully face it head-on. Dang 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 dang. Retreating 7 to 8 steps backward, Zhang Xian's internals were slightly rattled under the immense force.
Even though Zhang Xian knew that he was at a blatant disadvantage, he didn't panic. Instead, a slight radiance glowed from his eyes, and lines of insight energy slowly drifted into appearance. Eye of Insight. But soon, Zhang Xian frowned and shook his head in frustration. The gift from becoming a celestial master teacher was formidable, allowing him to peer into the flaws of a cultivator, but it came with a fatal flaw. The effects of the Eye of Insight were limited by the cultivation of its user. In other words, the Eye of Insight couldn't perceive the flaws of those stronger than him, making it completely useless against Lin Ruotian. Forget it. Flaws. Upon realizing that his newly earned talent was useless here, he immediately turned his eyes to his other gift. Who? His mind jolted, and a book appeared in the library of Heaven's Path. He quickly browsed through the book. A moment later, a slight smile crept onto his lips. No wonder his body feels so energetic. He consumed the blood of a spirit beast. Different from the eye of insight, the library of Heaven's Path could perceive the flaws in all cultivators, regardless of how high their cultivation was, as long as they displayed their battle technique before Zhang Xian. The strength, battle technique, and cultivation technique of the head of the Lin clan was recorded in detail in the book. The reason why he was able to achieve a breakthrough so quickly and achieve such overwhelming strength wasn't because he consumed some formidable pill, but because of the essence blood of a spirit beast. Spirit beast was an existence above that of savage beast. Even the weakest spirit beast possessed strength surpassing that of a Zhizuan realm. A drop of blood essence from this powerful life form could potentially induce a bloodline evolution in a half-Zhizuan savage beast, allowing it to successfully reach Zhizuan realm. To see through the other party's movements and evade to a safe zone before he could launch his offense, rendering the other party's raging might to fall empty. How in the world did he do it? Even 3-star master teachers didn't possess such fearsome abilities. Unless this guild master Lu was Lin Ruotian's father or teacher, and was well versed in his offense, otherwise, it was impossible for him to make such precise judgments. But how could guild master Lu be Lin Ruotian's father or teacher? This matter was completely impossible. He knew that guild master Lu was a talented person, and bizarre matters seemed to shroud around him, but he didn't think that it would be to this extent. To force the attacks of a stronger opponent to fall empty each time, regardless of how profound the movements were, just the thought of it made his head go blank. Do you dare to face me head-on? Lin Ruotian bellowed. He was on the verge of exploding. The more he fought, the more frustrated he got. A head-on battle? Isn't that what we're doing now? Zhang Xian said leisurely as he continued dodging. You attack while I evade. I advance while you retreat. Since you've been facing me all this while, how is this not a head-on battle? Upon hearing those words, Lin Ruotian nearly spurted a mouthful of blood. He knew that if he were to continue arguing with the other party, he would definitely die of anger before the other party could do anything. Thus, flicking his wrist, a sword appeared in his hands. Then, with a slight jerk, ripples appeared in the air, as though a paper had been cut apart. Do you dare to face me in a weapon duel then? Weapon? Sure. Zhang Xian was frozen for a moment before the edges of his lips curved up. Glancing backward, he chuckled, Zhao Ye, your sword. Chapter 386, Hall Master, Save Me. Zhang Xian had no weapons in his storage ring, and he gave the one which the elder of the Beast Hall gifted him to Zhao Ye. Since the other party had taken out his weapon, Zhang Xian immediately turned to the lady and shouted. Sword. Zhao Ye hesitated for a moment, but eventually, she still took out her sword and threw it straight toward Lu Laoshi. She didn't know why Lu Laoshi would ask to borrow her sword, but since she was here to help him, she didn't think too much about it. Voila! As soon as the sword was unsheathed, a cold light immediately shot out into the surroundings. In an instant, Zhang Xian's disposition immediately changed. For a moment, it seemed as though he had fused together with the sword in his hand, and his aura blasted straight into the heavens, threatening to slice even the blue sky apart. Ding 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 ding. Suddenly, all of the swords in the surroundings released a crisp buzz, as though greeting their sovereign. The buzzing harmonized together to form a pleasant and bright melody. Call of the myriad swords. This is the realm beyond that of sword intent, sword heart. Despite being in his 20s, Guild Master Lu has comprehended sword heart. How did he do it? Everyone trembled violently in shock, and all gazes were immediately fixed on Zhang Xian. Weapon intent was only the start of a long path for those specializing in weapons. Those who had reached a higher level could comprehend the heart of weapons. Sword heart was the crystallization of one's deep comprehension in swordsmanship, and even experts who had transcended Zhizuan were unable to reach that level easily. Yet, it had appeared from a Zhongshe realm pinnacle youngster at this moment, so how could they not be shocked? Sword heart, moving one's sword with one's heart, turning the tides with one's will. Every single movement is a sword art. Having comprehended such a state, there wasn't a single sword user who could match him at his cultivation realm. No, it isn't sword heart. At this moment, Pavilion Master Zhang arrived and he shook his head. Others might not know Guild Master Lu's true identity, but he was well aware of it. Given the talents Zhang Xian had displayed, if he were to allow Zhang Xian were to be killed by the Lin clan, the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarter would definitely slaughter him. Thus, he rushed here as soon as he heard the news. However, seeing that Zhang Xian had the upper hand, he decided to watch by the side. No? Elder Zhu asked doubtfully. Call of the myriad swords, roar of the dragons, that was the distinctive trait of one who had comprehended sword heart. If that wasn't it, what else could it be? Depending on how deep one's understanding is, there are 3 levels to sword heart: primary, intermediate, and advanced. One who has comprehended sword heart will be capable of nourishing spirit into a sword, allowing it to harmonize with one, making it an extension of one's limbs in the truest sense. Even though Zhang Shi has managed to induce the call of the myriad swords, he has only managed to stir the aura of the swords. He hasn't completely grasped the spirit of the sword yet, Pavilion Master Jiang explained. Sword heart was a realm, as well as a state. It represented the spirit and heart within a sword. Even though Zhang Xian's level of comprehension towards swords was outstanding, going to the extent of even inducing the call of the myriad swords, his understanding of spirit was still too lacking. In fact, he hadn't even come into contact with it yet, so naturally, he couldn't be considered to have completely stepped into the level of sword heart. Then, this is, after hearing Pavilion Master Zhang's explanation, Elder Zhu asked doubtfully. If this wasn't sword heart realm, then what could this be considered as? It's partial sword heart realm. Pavilion Master Jiang answered with a grim expression. Having comprehended sword intent, every single move one made was a sword art in itself. Previously, when crossing hands with the other party, due to the might from the other party's Xinqi, Zhang Xian was unable to attack easily, so he could only dodge continuously. However, with a sword in his hand, the situation had changed. He could fight with the other party on the same footing now. Voila! With a slight jerk, the glint of a sword shot across the air, and a radiant sword emanation shot out straight toward Lin Ruotian. What? Cried Lin Ruotian. The other party had been dodging his attacks before, causing all of his attacks to fall flat. He thought that using a weapon could widen the range of his attacks, making it more difficult for the other party to dodge, thus forcing him up a corner. How could he have known that the other party would have comprehended the heart of weapons? The heck? How could he match up to that? Even though his cultivation had reached half Shizuan, his comprehension of the sword hadn't even reached sword intent, needless to say, sword heart. With an awful expression, his body immediately scrunched together to avoid the other party's sword chi. Just as he was about to counterattack, he saw another white light flying straight toward his neck. The heck? Sensing the killing intent imbued into the attack, he knew that his neck would be severed if he were to face it head-on. Thus, without any hesitation, he immediately rolled away. Voila! The sword chi struck the ground and a deep gorge appeared. Rock fragments and dust flew in the air. Damn it! To think that a half-Shizuan expert like himself would be forced to roll to avoid an attack. Lin Ruotian's rage bubbled within. In the midst of his roll, his hand struck the ground to provide him momentum to leap up, but at that very moment, his hair stood on ends, and he instinctively rolled forward. Zila! A deep gorge appeared at where he was originally at. Having comprehended sword intent, one would be able to produce an emanation of one's sword and Jinqi in the form of sword chi. Sword chi was incomparably sharp and indestructible by those of a similar cultivation realm. Even though Lin Ruotian was a half-Shizuan expert, he was still unable to withstand the might of it. Previously, he was able to force the other party to keep a distance through his deep and powerful Jinqi. However, before the sharp sword chi, this technique became completely useless. If he were to try to do so, he would simply be cut through in the next instant. Lu Cheng, you forced to roll twice consecutively. Lin Ruotian was anxious and furious. He roared furiously, but before he could do anything, another sword chi came flying straight toward him. See la. This time, his reaction was a little slow. Feeling a slight chill, his loose robe was torn apart from the middle, and a few strands of his hair fell to the floor. Sensing the bone-piercing chill from the sword chi, he knew that his guts would be cut through if he were a moment slower. Knowing that this wasn't the time to speak, he continued rolling about. This is truly weird. In terms of fist art, Lu Laoshi could only dodge continuously, helpless before Guild Master Lin, but in terms of sword, clan head Lin couldn't even stand on his own 2 feet, forced to roll around the area. The Lin clan is reputed for its swordsmanship, and the head of the Lin clan is a famous sword master in the kingdom, and Guild Master Lu, as a physician and a normal teacher, doesn't even own a sword. Yet, to think that the sword master is more skilled in fist art, and the swordless physician is more adept in swordsmanship, what in the world is this? Staring at one another, everyone was dumbstruck at the sight before them. The Lin clan possessed a heritage of over several centuries in swordsmanship, and it stood at the very pinnacle of the field in Tianwu Kingdom. Everyone thought that Guild Master Lu would lose tragically upon seeing clan head Lin taking out his sword. No one could have imagined that there would be such a twist. To think that the sword master Lin Ruotian would be forced to roll around the field, unable to retaliate at all. Wasn't he way too weak? It isn't clan head Lin who is weak, it's that Guild Master Lu is too strong. A grave expression sat on Principal Lu's face. Under normal circumstances, even if he comprehended sword intent and sword heart, his cultivation is still only at Zhongshe realm pinnacle. It should have been impossible for him to throw out sword chi one after another. On top of that, sword chi also has a maximum range. The further the attack, the greater the expenditure of one's Jinqi. A few elders of Tianwu Academy nodded in agreement. Sword chi was the emanation of Jinqi. The further the attack, the greater the dissipation. Putting aside the weaker might of the attack, it took a huge toll on one's Jinqi as well. Look, despite having thrown so many attacks, his sword chi still remains radiant and powerful, causing clan head Lin to be completely helpless before it. This shows that his Jinqi is incomparably dense and pure. Principal Xia continued explaining, only when one's Jinqi reaches a certain level of density can one execute sword chi continuously without fearing it running dry. Only when one's Jinqi reaches a certain level of purity will one be able to prevent one's Jinqi from dissipating in midair, thus maintaining its might. Indeed. The crowd nodded. While the crowd was dumbstruck by the sight before them, Zhang Xian's sword was dancing in the air. Clan head Lin, didn't you say that you want to compete with me in a weapon duel? What do you mean by rolling around on the floor? Bellowing loudly, Zhang Xian declared righteously, do you dare to face me head on? Pooh! Hearing those words, Lin Ruotian's anger clouded over his mind for a moment, causing him to be struck by a sword chi. Chapter 387, The Unreliable Hall Master. The poison hall was the fear of all ordinary cultivators. Poison came in many different forms, making it hard for a person to guard against it, no matter how strong they were. Initially, when Liao Sun walked out with the Lin clan, no one paid him any notice. However, upon hearing the shout, the crowd suddenly realized that he was the newly appointed hall master of the Red Lotus Range branch. This matter wasn't well known, but some of the clans with a wide intelligence network still managed to grab hold of the news. As the hall master, the other party surely possessed the strength of a 2-star pinnacle poison master. Needless to say, a Zhongshe realm pinnacle cultivator, even a Zhizuan realm expert, would have to wary against his poison. To think that the Lin clan had dealings with such a person. Their hearts immediately turned cold. Guild leader Lu might be powerful, but poison was something much too fearsome. Even the slightest contact could potentially render an expert helpless. Guild leader Lu is probably done for, indeed. According to the rumors, Hall Master Liao even managed to kill a Zhizuan realm primary stage expert. Given that guild leader Lu is only at Zhongshe realm pinnacle, how can he withstand his poison? To think that the Lin clan would have dealings with the Poison Hall. How could they, after ascertaining the identities of Liao Sun and the others, even though the crowd was furious at the Lin clan's doing, they couldn't do anything at all. Before the other party's poison, their overwhelming numerical advantage didn't mean a thing at all. I must save Zhang Shi. If the Poison Hall really makes a move, I'll immediately send a request to the headquarters to overturn the entire Red Lotus range. A glint flashed across Pavilion Master Zhang's eyes. Master teachers promoted the equality of education. While the Poison Hall was a feared existence, it wasn't without its value. Thus, as long as it didn't go too far, the Master Teacher Pavilion wouldn't go to the extent of eradicating it. However, if this Hall Master Liao Sun dared to lay his hands on the genius Zhang Shi, then he shouldn't blame him for getting nasty. He would ensure that the headquarters would lead an army to destroy his entire nest. Sword intent, sword chi, and heaven's path sword art. In contrast to the crowd's anger, Zhao Ye's face turned pale, and her body trembled non-stop. Even though Lu Laoshi didn't explicitly execute the Heaven's Path sword art, Zhao Ye was still able to catch some semblance of it. This was definitely the move that Grand Teacher taught her. How could this man know the sword art that Grand Teacher taught her? Could it be that, a thought suddenly flashed across her head, and she immediately turned to look at Wang Ying. As soon as the eyes of the duo met, the other party nodded. Really? Zhao Ye's face paled further. Only at this moment did she understand why the other party borrowed her sword, and why his face was so bizarre when he learned of her duel with Mu Xueqing. It turned out that Lu Laoshi was Zhang Laoshi. Teacher, careful. Upon realizing this fact, she clenched her fists tightly together. She had absolute confidence in her teacher's strength, but the other party was a poison master, skilled in utilizing what that was naked to the human eye. Could teacher really withstand it? Anxious, she immediately turned her gaze forward. Your name is Lu Qing, right? I have to admit that you're a genius. Walking forward, Liao Sun glanced at Zhang Xian with composure. However, it's a pity that you met me. He shook his head regrettably. The other party was indeed talented, but what was the use of it? He shouldn't have made an enemy out of the Lin clan. Only if the Lin clan became the sovereign of Tianwu Kingdom would the Poison Hall be able to come out from hiding. Liao Sun wouldn't allow anyone to foil his plans. With a flick of his wrist, a bottle of powder appeared in his palm. Then, driving the Jinqi in his body, he prepared to scatter this at the other party at any moment. Who? Seeing that Liao Sun was about to make a move, Zhang Xian kept his sword. As soon as the relentless sword chi attack came to a stop, Lin Ruotian recovered and hurriedly dashed toward Liao Sun, hiding behind his back. Kill him with your poison, he roared excitedly and savagely. It was fortunate that he invited Hall Master Liao here today. Otherwise, even if the Lin clan wasn't destroyed, its prestige would have fallen into the gutters. Don't worry, leave it to me. Twisting the bottle of powder in his hands, Hall Master Liao was ready to strike at any moment. Teacher, anxious, Lu Chong dashed forward, but before he could reach Zhang Xian, the latter shook his hands, turned to the Great Herb King, and smiled. Great Herb King, now that you're cured of your contract goo, your guts sure have inflated. How dare you bring Liao Sun out to cause trouble? Contract goo. The Great Herb King, who was looking at the commotion, narrowed his eyes, and he almost fell weakly to the ground. Liao Sun didn't know the true identity of Physician Bai, but he did. The genius master teacher of the Master Teacher Pavilion, Zhang Xian. He was the one who cured him of his contract goo back then. Very few people knew of this matter. Given how the other party was able to speak of it so confidently, could it be that one must know that he had personally witnessed the disguising ability of that Zhang Shi? Could this Lu Laoshi be one of his disguises as well? It was no wonder he thought that it was too much of a coincidence for two grandmasters of the way of medicine to suddenly appear in Tianwu Kingdom, so they were actually the same person. It doesn't make a difference even if you know the Great Herb King. Can anyone tell me what the heck is going on? Why would Hall Master Liao, who had confidently assured Lin Ruotian a moment ago, suddenly become so mad? That was Lin Ruotian, a half-Shizuan expert. To be pummeled like that, the heck. It is fortunate that I didn't step forward just now. Otherwise, I'd be probably in a worse shape. Lin Ruotian's strength was originally above that of Liao Sun, but caught off guard and poisoned, how could he still match up to the latter? Completely helpless before the latter's pummeling, his face swelled up, and the remaining traces of humanity was beaten out of his face. Enough. Seeing that Lin Ruotian was on the verge of dying under the pummeling, Zhang Xian hurriedly waved his hands. Yes. Liao Sun stopped and stood in front of Zhang Xian with a fawning smile on his face. That senior granduncle, please pardon my blindness to fail to identify your greatness, where did that bunch of nonsense come from? Go and wait by the side. Frowning, Zhang Xian reprimanded. Why would the men from the poison hall come here instead of staying peacefully at their Red Lotus range? To dream of usurping power, they were tired of living. Yes. Seeing that the other party had no intentions of pursuing this matter, Liao Sun heaved a sigh of relief, and he quickly walked to the side, not daring to say a word at all. Hall Master Liao went to stand by the side, as though an obedient student, after being reprimanded by teacher. Mu Xueqing and the others blinked, and their hands tugged on their hair in frenzy. They thought that Lu Laoshi would surely lose in the battle against the Lin clan, thus they begged with the elders in their clans to support him. Yet before these supporters they had brought could do anything, Lu Laoshi had already sent the entire clan to its knee. Even the half-Shizuan, Lin Ruotian, wasn't a match at all. While the crowd was overwhelmed with shock, Lin Ruotian finally recovered. Gritting his teeth, he immediately darted into the residence. No matter how foolish he might be, it was already clear that the tides had changed. The best he could at the moment was to preserve his own life. He had to inform the princess consort of this matter as soon as possible so that she could send her men over. Otherwise, the Lin clan would truly be destroyed today. Who? Darting into the residence, he immediately triggered the formation within. A mist immediately floated into appearance, shrouding the entire Lin clan. As the base of the Lin clan, it was impossible for it to be guarded with just a single formation. However, given how easily the strongest formation laid had been broken, all this formation could do was to delay his enemies. But of course, this little time meant a lot to him under the current situation. You wish to escape when you haven't apologized yet? Seeing the other party scrambling back into the residence, Zhang Xian shook his head. I've already said it, if you don't apologize, I'll beat you until you apologize. Lu Chong, charge in. Returning the sword back to Zhao Ye, Zhang Xian chuckled softly. He walked up to the residence and kicked at a certain spot once more. Wang! The formation shrouding the residence stopped. The teacher and student entered. Wait for me. With the departure of the duo and the bizarre gazes of the crowd, how could Hall Master Liao Sun and the Great Herb King dare to remain here? They immediately dashed into the residence as well. As the commotion came to an end, silence loomed over the entrance of the Lin clan residence. Looks like the Lin clan is done for. Looking at the convulsing elders who were lying on the floor and Lin Ruotian who had escaped without any hesitation, the crowd was still in a daze. Back then, when their children and juniors pleaded with them, they thought that this Lu Laoshi was being a little too rash arguing with the Lin clan. Only now did they realize how hilarious their thoughts were. Single-handedly, he managed to crush the Lin clan who dominated the capital. This was something they could have never imagined in the past. What in the world was that fellow? How could he be that powerful? Teacher, contrary to the shock of the others, the eyes of Mu Xueqing and the others were glowing, and they clenched their fists in excitement. All that lingered in their minds was a voice that kept shouting, "He is my teacher." My teacher managed to destroy formations with a single kick and vanquished the Lin clan which dominated the capital. My teacher, with his powerful sword Qi, was able to even render a half-Shizuan expert helpless. How lucky and proud they were to have such a teacher. As their hearts trembled in agitation, their eyes suddenly fell on a few other people. They were Zhao Ye, Zhenyang, and Group. Zhao, I know that Zhang Shi is formidable, but is he capable of unleashing sword qi that rendered even a half-Shizuan helpless and stop a grade 3 pinnacle formation with a single kick like Lu Laoshi? With her hands behind her back, Mu Xueqing's eyes shone with excitement. Zhang Shi was incredible, but he had only managed to reach Zongshi realm a few days ago. On the other hand, not only was there Lu Laoshi a Zongshi realm pinnacle expert, he even managed to subdue the number 1 expert of Tianwu Kingdom, Lin Ruotian. The title of the number 1 expert in the kingdom rightfully went to him. How your Zhang Shi be a match for such a person? Lu Laoshi is indeed incredible. Zhao Ye replied calmly. Zhao Ye, why would you? Seeing Mu Xueqing's gleeful look, Zheng Yang and the others were infuriated. They thought that Zhao Ye would refute the other party, but never in their dreams did they think that she would admit it directly. This caused their faces to flush in anxiety. Don't worry. Lu Laoshi may be incredible, but our Zhang Laoshi isn't inferior in any way. Knowing that Lu Laoshi and Zhang Laoshi were the same person, there was no need for them to argue over this matter anymore. Since teacher had intentionally hidden his identity, not even notifying them of the matter, it wasn't Zhao Ye's place to expose him then. Harumphing coldly, Zhao Ye turned around. Boom! A powerful aura surged forth from her. The strength belonging to a Zongshi realm intermediate stage rushed at Mu Xueqing and the others as though a massive wave. Zongshi realm intermediate stage. Wasn't she still at Pixue realm a few days ago? How did she jump 2 realms all of the sudden? This is the result of Zhang Shi's guidance. Sensing the aura from Zhao Ye, the crowd fell into a commotion once more. Due to the uproar from the duel between Zhao Ye and Mu Xueqing, the crowd knew that she was only at Pixue realm 2 days ago. To reach Zongshi realm intermediate stage within 2 days, this rate of advancement was way too fast. Mu Xueqing's eyes narrowed. Initially, she was indignant when she lost the second duel against the other party, and she thought that she would be able to defeat the other party now that she had reached Tongxian realm. Never in her wildest imaginations did she expect that the other party would have improved as well, and for it to be even more drastic. She had skipped past Tongxian realm to reach Zongshi realm intermediate stage directly. How could she fight against this? Could Zhang Shi's guidance truly be that incredible? That's nothing much. 5 days ago, Lu Chong was only Dingli realm primary stage, but he has already reached Zongshi realm intermediate stage already. Meng Tao harumphed. Advancing from Dingli realm primary stage to Zongshi realm intermediate stage in just 5 days? Before the crowd could recover from their shock, another astonishing news blasted at them once more. Lu Laoshi and Zhang Shi, aren't the 2 of you too monstrous? It would already an incredible feat to induce an advancement of one's cultivation by a small stage in just 5 days. Yet, your students leaped through several realms in just a few days. Looks like this Lu Laoshi is as talented as Zhang Shi. Indeed, the 2 of them are on par with one another. They're both incredible geniuses. Actually, I think that Lu Laoshi is more incredible. Inducing a growth from Dingli realm primary stage to Zongshi realm in 5 days is clearly much more difficult than inducing a growth from Pixue realm to Zongshi realm in 2 days. More importantly, he possesses a powerful cultivation. No matter how talented Zhang Shi is, his true strength is only at Zongshi realm primary stage. Actually, I think that Zhang Shi is more formidable. Just by his feats of bashing through the various stages in the master-teacher examination and breaking all of the records already made him superior to most talents out there. More importantly, he is still young, so he still has a bright future before him. Amidst the crowd, many loyal fans of Zhang Shi and Lu Laoshi appeared, and they began to quarrel with one another. Neither side was willing to give in to the other. Escaping in a panic, he soon arrived at a sealed chamber. There was nothing but a white wall in the room. With a flick of his finger, a droplet of fresh blood fell into the aperture on the wall. Wang! A bright light shone, and the wall was activated. It was something similar to the Wall of Dilemma in the Physician Guild and the Wall of Pill Formulae in the Apothecary Guild, Communication Wall. Thus, without hesitating for too long, Liang Qingming nodded. "If you're in a rush, we should ride on the Crown Prince's gold-scaled lightning beast. Possessing a strength of Jizuan realm intermediate stage, it is capable of traveling at high speed. Tianwu Royal City might be slightly far from here, but on it, we can arrive in just 2 days." "All right." Lin Long nodded. As a Jizuan realm savage beast, the Crown Prince's gold-scaled lightning beast was capable of traveling several 10,000 li in a single day. 1. They might make it in time if they travel on it. Have Grandmaster Beast Tamer Zhao follow us, and get him to drive it as fast as he can. Lin Long instructed once more. Yes. Liang Qingming turned around to make preparations. In less than an incense's time, a massive savage beast appeared in the courtyard. Lin Long dived into the room on its back, and with a flap of its wings, the savage beast soared into the skies. Pang! Pang! Slowly advancing forward, Zhang Xian broke through 7 to 8 formations before reaching the room where Lin Ruotian escaped to. Following behind Zhang Xian, Liao Sun got a clear glimpse of the strength of this young man. Regardless of which formation it was, with a single look, he was able to stop it with a kick. This was no longer something that could be described with the word fearsome. It was fortunate that he reacted decisively and turned against the Lin clan on the spot. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. You sure caught up fast. Knowing that they would appear, there wasn't the slightest panic in Lin Ruotian's eyes when the door was opened. Instead, with savagery on his face, he hissed, "However, even if you manage to catch up, do you dare to kill me? I've already informed the princess consort of this matter, and her men will arrive soon." Zhang Laoshe was formidable, but it would be hard for him to triumph over this Lu Laoshe. It was laughable that they had always thought that the other party was unworthy of his reputation. Do you think that Zhang Laoshe's lesson is better, or that Lu Laoshe's lesson is better? Seeing the expression of the group, Zhao Ye shook her head helplessly and asked with a bizarre look. "The both of them are good." With a scarlet face, Zhen Yang replied. He wanted to say that Zhang Laoshe was better, but the lesson of this Lu Laoshe wasn't inferior to their teachers in any way. "Forget it, you all go figure it out yourselves." Since teacher didn't say anything, Zhao Ye couldn't be bothered to explain either. Turning around, Zhao Ye and Wang Ying left together, leaving behind 3 dumbfounded guys behind. After completing the lesson, Zhang Xian returned to Tianwu Academy. Not too long later, Lu Chong walked up to him, and with slightly reddened eyes and a trembling body, he knelt to the floor. All of the words that he had wanted to say seemed to converge into a single one, "Teacher." It was because of his teacher that he had a chance to exact his vengeance and found the purpose of his existence. It was because of teacher that his parents were able to rest peacefully in the earth, and that he will not be ashamed to meet them when he finally reunites with them. Finding such a good teacher was the best thing that the heavens had given him. Stand up. On the classroom, Zhang Xian looked at him gently. "You should be able to tell me why the Lin clan had to eradicate your clan now, right?" Even though Lu Chang's elder sister had castrated Lin Lang, the Lin clan, in consideration of their reputation, shouldn't go to the extent of destroying an entire clan consisting of more than 100 members. Most probably there was another more compelling reason. Back then, in the royal palace, Missouri Tianxue and Mou were around, so Lu Chong didn't mention the matter. The duo didn't realize anything, but Zhang Xian still noticed that something was amiss. "Teacher, it's true that the Lin clan didn't destroy my Chu clan because of that matter. It's because of an heirloom in my clan." Without any hesitation, Lu Chong immediately revealed the truth. Given how much his teacher had done for him, he had decided that he wouldn't hide anything from him. "Heirloom?" Zhang Xian frowned. "Yes, it's an ancestor's handwritten letter." Lu Chong replied. "Ancestor's handwritten letter?" Zhang Xian was perplexed. Why would the Lin clan want a handwritten letter from your ancestors? This letter was most probably a letter Lu Chang's ancestor left to his offspring, but why would the Lin clan fight for it, even going to the extent of wiping out an entire clan? The handwritten letter of our ancestor indeed isn't worth much, but within the letter is the handwritten reply from Kong Shi. Lu Chong explained. Kong Shi's handwritten words. Zhang Xian was taken aback, and his head turned blank. Chapter 390, Spirit Blood Body Nourishment Formula. Emperor Kong Shi was the founder of the Master Teacher Pavilion, the #1 person in history. The value of his handwritten words was invaluable. To think that his handwritten reply would be in a letter of the Chu clan ancestors putting aside the Lin clan, even the entire Xianyuan kingdom would go into a frenzy over it. All of Zhang Xian's doubts were immediately answered as well. Lu Chong had tried to hide himself, changed his name, and gone to the extent of pretending to be a mute, but given the immense influence the Lin clan wielded in the capital, they were more than capable of tracking him down. It was impossible for Lu Chong to live beneath their noses for 2 years without realizing a thing. From the looks of it, it seemed like the Lin clan had intentionally left him alive so that they could use him to find the handwritten letter. They probably knew about Lu Chang's mediocre talent as well, and knowing that he was incapable of exacting vengeance, they left him be. They couldn't have imagined that Lu Chong would meet with Zhang Xian, and that the insignificant figure whom they thought nothing of would bring ultimate doom to their clan. Your ancestors were acquainted with Kong Shi. After comprehending the situation, Zhang Xian continued asking. Why would Kong Shi write his ancestor a reply for no reason? I'm not too sure about the details, and I haven't seen the letter myself either. My father has only vaguely told me about it in the past, Lu Chong continued. The letter currently isn't in my old clan or on me. It's hidden by my ancestors in the depths of a mountain range. If teacher wants it, I can hand it over to you. This handwritten letter was left behind by the Chu clan's ancestors. Even when facing impending death, the Chu clan was unwilling to hand it over to the Lin clan. Yet, Lu Chong was willing to hand it over to his teacher without any hesitation. Forget it. Even though Kong Shi handwritten words are valuable, it's of no use to me. Zhang Xian shook his head. Kong Shi's handwritten words might be an unparalleled treasure to the others, to the extent that they would kill one another over it, but to Zhang Xian, it was nothing at all. No matter how formidable the letter was, could it match up to the golden page of the Book of Heaven's Path? To Zhang Xian, given that it couldn't contribute to his cultivation, it was just something he could sell for a lot of money. Besides, it belonged to his student. For this, Lu Chang's entire clan was destroyed. Zhang Xian hadn't stooped down to the level of vying with his student over his fortune. I've been rude. Hearing his teacher's words, Lu Chang's face flushed. He had seen his teacher's sincerity toward him, and it should have been clear that he didn't do it for the ancestor handwritten letter. To bring up this matter seemed as though Lu Chong was sounding Zhang Xian out instead. Choosing not to dawdle on this problem, Zhang Xian glanced at Lu Chong. He had left right after conducting his lecture back then, so he didn't know how Lu Chong chose to deal with the Lin clan. I didn't kill them. Instead, I had Hall Master Liao cripple their cultivation entirely, Lu Chong replied. Even though he was adamant to exact his vengeance so that his kin could live in peace, he knew that he would be letting them off too easily if he were to just kill them. The Lin clan had been arrogant in the past few years, and they had offended many people. Given that their cultivation had been crippled, and that they no longer had formations to protect them, even if Lu Chong didn't kill them personally, this powerful clan would soon disappear in the tides of history. On top of that, by choosing not to kill them, he could protect his teacher's honor as well. Hearing how Lu Chong dealt with the Lin clan, Zhang Xian nodded in satisfaction. After undergoing this incident, his student had matured. While Half-Shizun realm was just a small realm above that of Zhongshe realm pinnacle, the spiritual energy requirement was even more than the entire Zhongshe realm added up together. Zhang Xian was still frustrated thinking about where he could look for spirit stones when the Lin clan solved his problems. I should check if there are any cultivation techniques or secret manuals. Zhang Xian continued browsing through the various objects in the area. To him, there were only two things that were important to him now. Firstly, spirit stones. Secondly, cultivation techniques and secret manuals, and naturally, the greater the quantity, the better it was for him. There seems to be a lot of books on formations in here. Soon, Zhang Xian's eyes fell upon a huge collection of books on formations placed on bookshelves. As a distinguished clan of formation masters, their collection of such books probably exceeded that of even the capital's formation master guild. Quickly taking them into his collection, Zhang Xian's eyes fell on the final bookshelf. As I thought, there are cultivation technique manuals on half Zhizuan realm and Zhizuan realm. On the very end of the bookshelf was where the most powerful Lin clan heirloom cultivation techniques and battle techniques were placed. Among them were half Zhizuan and Zhizuan realm cultivation technique. However, the number was severely lacking. There were only slightly more than a dozen half Zhizuan realm manuals and 2 Zhizuan realm manuals. Even so, it's still worth collecting. Other people would be delighted to see these cultivation technique, but they were of little use to Zhang Xian. Even so, every manual still counted. He decided to look at their contents first. Every book that his finger came into contact with would form an identical book in the Library of Heaven's Path. Compile. Then, he compiled the dozen or so half Zhizuan book together to form a single one. With a single look, he fell speechless. There were too few correct sentences, so the technique formed couldn't be cultivated at all. Forget it. Putting aside achieving a breakthrough, Zhang Xian might even die if he were to cultivate this technique. Knowing this, Zhang Xian immediately lost all interest. What is that? Just as Zhang Xian was about to retract his consciousness from the storage ring, he saw a small jade bottle placed at the corner of the ring. It wasn't too big, and it was inconspicuous compared to all of the objects in the storage ring, but it was made of the top quality, spirit harnessing jade, which carried the attribute of warmth. With a swift movement, the jade bottle appeared in his hand. Instead of opening it, Zhang Xian uttered in his head, "Flaws." A book immediately appeared in the Library of Heaven's Path. Flipping it open, it wrote, "Forged by a 7mo craftsman using spirit harnessing jade, it has the ability to prevent the decomposition of blood and dissipation of spiritual energy. Stored within it are 2 drops of blood essence from a grade 1 spirit beast, steel-armored dragon." Spirit beast blood essence? Zhang Xian's eyes lit up, and he nearly jumped up from agitation. When he first fought against Lin Ruotian, the Library of Heaven's Path clearly detailed that the other party had consumed spirit beast blood essence, granting him overwhelming vitality. Zhang Xian thought that the other party would have already consumed all of the blood essence. He didn't think that there would still be 2 drops left. Seemed like his daughter, the princess consort, had given him 3 droplets, but given the limitations of his physical condition, he only managed to absorb 1. Even so, it was sufficient to grant him the strength equivalent to a half Zhizuan realm pinnacle. There should be an absorption method in here as well. Different from spirit stones, spirit beast blood essence had a special method that one had to use to absorb it so that it would fuse with one's body and augment it. By using the blood essence of spirit beast to nourish one's body, one could gain the fearsome physical abilities of a spirit beast. A complete cultivation technique was detailed in the manual. It worked. Briefly browsing through it, Zhang Xian clenched his fist tightly. Just as he guessed, the spirit blood body nourishment formula could be compiled with the other physical body cultivation technique manuals to form a new Heaven's Path technique. I'll call it Heaven's Path Golden Body 2 Dan. Zhang Xian immediately gave it a name. The Heaven's Path Golden Body that Zhang Xian compiled back in Lu Chen's home was powerful, but as his cultivation progressed, its effectiveness was steadily going downhill. On the other hand, this physical body cultivation technique he had just compiled was clearly far superior to the previous Heaven's Path Golden Body. One has to rub the spirit beast blood essence on one's acupoint to absorb its strength and augment one's physical body. Once one succeeds, one would gain immense fighting power. Remembering the contents, Zhang Xian immediately opened the jade bottle, poured out the 2 drops of blood essence, and following the method detailed in the secret manual, he rubbed it on his acupoints. Tzzzzzzzzzzzz. As soon as the blood essence came into contact with Zhang Xian's skin, a blazing heat immediately seared his skin. Spirit beasts were existences that surpassed the Fighter 9 Dawn. If one tried to forcibly absorb spirit blood without a suitable absorption technique to go with it, not only would one be unable to improve, one might even die on the spot. Previously, Lin Ruotian had told him that he had informed Princess Consort Lin Long of the matter, so it was highly likely that she would send her men over. Even though Zhang Xian acted nonchalantly on the surface, he was quite concerned over this matter. Given that he had managed to achieve a huge leap in his strength, he could finally relieve himself of the huge worry in his heart. Heaving a long sigh of relief, Zhang Xian suddenly remembered that Lu Chong was still in the room. Quickly extracting his consciousness from the storage ring, he turned around to look for Lu Chong, only to see the youngster staring at him with mouth agape and eyes widened into huge circles. The current Lu Chong was experiencing a slight breakdown. As soon as he passed the Lin clan's storage ring over, his teacher had started to go into a daze. After a long moment, he suddenly leaped up, as though suffering from a stroke, and struck the strength-measuring rock pillar. Then the pillar displayed 9,999 ding of strength. What in the world happened? His teacher had only whipped out a jade bottle, dabbled some crimson liquid on his body, fell into a daze, and his strength immediately surged. Not only did he achieve a breakthrough, he even nearly reached Jizuan realm. How in the world did he do it? All along, Lu Chong thought that he had improved swiftly through the poison tempering, but after seeing his teacher, he realized that it wasn't a big deal at all. Other people would die of old age trying to reach the half-Jizuan stage, but his teacher only had to fall into a momentary daze to do so, and not to mention, that daze brought him right to the peak of half-Jizuan realm. If word were to spread out, those self-proclaimed geniuses would probably die of shame. This was no longer the feat of a genius, but a monster. Just as he was overwhelmed by shock, he saw his calm teacher looking at him with glowing eyes. Right, do you still have any enemies? Why don't I help you get back at them as well? If not, help me ask Mu Xueqing and the others if they have any, after which, Zhang Xian started counting on his fingers. If there are a few more such clans, I'll surely be able to obtain a lot of treasures and secret manuals. If so, I'll have truly struck it rich. Lu Chong. Teacher, aren't you an enlightened expert who have seen through material possession? Aren't you a genius who couldn't care less about those crude objects? Exacting vengeance for others to confiscate wealth? Why do you seem more and more unlike an enlightened expert, but a greedy ruffian instead? In an instant, Lu Chong felt that he had to re-evaluate his opinion of his teacher, but it was no wonder why Zhang Xian was so excited. Initially, he only went against the Lin clan because he felt indignant for Lu Chong. Who knew that he would suddenly attain such a huge wealth? Putting everything aside, if he could find a few more drops of spirit beast blood essence, through the heavens path golden body 2 Dan, he would be able to break through the bottleneck constricting his physical body and reach Jizuan realm. By then, even if he were to head to Xianyuan Kingdom, there would be nothing for him to fear. He would be able to stand tall and mighty there too. While waiting for the other party to respond, the sound of someone knocking on the door suddenly echoed in the classroom. Is Lu Laoshi inside? Lu Chong, you should rest by the side first. Bringing back his authority as a teacher, Zhang Xian waved Lu Chong away and sat upright. Then, he replied impassively, is it Sun Laoshi? Please enter. He could recognize the voice of the person outside. It was Mo Hongyi, who was disguised as Sun Cheng. It seemed like the poison in his body had been neutralized, and he had recovered from its effects already. Jiya. As soon as Zhang Xian said those words, a figure immediately rushed in and glared at Zhang Xian furiously. With a questioning tone, he bellowed, Lu Laoshi, you should know that your tea is poisoned, right? I only knew after that incident. Honestly speaking, I'm a victim here too. Seeing the other party's look, Zhang Xian consoled. Someone must be trying to kill me, and you only happened to step right into it and accidentally consumed the poison tea. That such a matter happened. Don't worry, I'll definitely look into the matter and return your grievance. Redress my grievance? Victim. Victim my head. Hearing Zhang Xian's words, Mo Hongyi's hair stood on ends, as though a cat who had his tail stepped on, and he erupted into rage. The heck, you are a victim. In the end, didn't you end up well? As the #1 genius, not only did I get poisoned, I even fell into the fecal drain. More importantly, redress my grievance? How in the world are you going to redress my grievance when it's your student who poisoned me? What's wrong? Seeing the other party getting angrier and angrier, Zhang Xian was perplexed. No one likes to get poisoned, and honestly speaking, how could I know that you would drink the tea from my room? You all right? Knowing that this fellow was indeed a victim, and he was ignorant of the matter, Mo Hongyi suppressed his rage and harumphed, there's no need for you to investigate. I already know who the culprits are. Who? Frowning, Zhang Xian's face turned grave. He had been contemplating over this matter for a very long time. He didn't offend anyone in this identity of his, so why in the world would someone want to poison him? If he knew who the culprit was, he would definitely pursue the matter. It's Zheng Yang and the others. I saw them do it personally last night. Oblivious to Zhang Xian's thoughts, Mo Hongyi harumphed coldly. Zheng Yang. Just as Zhang Xian was thinking about how he should teach the other party a lesson, Mo Hongyi's words caused his to stagger, and he nearly fell to the ground.
To think that such a matter could happen. She truly didn't know how to face Zhang Laoshi in the future. Wang Ying, what's wrong? Sensing that this was a huge matter, Zheng Yang looked at her anxiously. This, Wang Ying's face turned red. I suspect that Lu Laoshi is Zhang Laoshi in disguise. Lu Laoshi is Zhang Laoshi? Zheng Yang and the others were stunned. Indeed. When fighting against the head of the Lin clan, Lu Laoshi executed Heaven's Path movement art and Heaven's Path leg art. I've seen it clearly, and there's no mistake about it. On top of that, the technique that he used after borrowing Zhao Ya's sword is Heaven's Path sword art, which Grand Teacher passed down to Zhao Ya. Furthermore, given how he treated us, seeing the disbelieving looks of the trio, Wang Ying explained. Lu Laoshi is Zhang Laoshi? Then the person we poisoned is Zhang Laoshi? And we even scolded him so happily. Yuan Tao, Zheng Yang, and Lu Yang trembled in shock. Their faces turned pale, and they were on the verge of breaking down. If that was true, then what in the world did they do in the past few days? Teacher had done so much for them, yet all that was on their minds was how they could do him, and the trio felt so stifled that they might spew blood. I want to go to Tianwu Academy to apologize to teacher. After a long moment, Zheng Yang slowly said with a pale face. I'll go with you. Same here. Yuan Tao and Lu Yang hurriedly nodded. All right. Upon making a decision, the group hurriedly headed toward Tianwu Academy. Knowing that they had to face it sooner or later, Zhao Ya and Wang Ying also tagged along with them. Dong! Before they could reach the academy, the sound of a deafening bell rang. It's from the Master Teacher Pavilion. The group couldn't help but turn toward the source of the ringing.
Chapter 392, Envoy from the Headquarters. This sound is the bell from the Master Teacher Pavilion to gather all Master Teachers. Something huge must have happened. Zhao Ya's face tightened in worry. The bell from the Master Teacher Pavilion wouldn't sound for no reason, and when it did, it meant that something urgent and important had occurred. Let's go over to the Master Teacher Pavilion and take a look first. If teacher is in the capital, he'll surely rush over as well. Frowning, Zhao Ya instructed. The bell demanded for the presence of all Master Teachers. If Lu Laoshi was truly Zhang Laoshi, he should rush there upon hearing the bell as well. Zheng Yang and the others nodded. Thus, the group started heading toward the Master Teacher Pavilion. This is the assembly bell. Who rang it? Standing at the entrance of the Lin clan was Pavilion Master Jiang, who was still in a slight trance after Zhang Xian's lecture. Upon hearing the sound, he was taken aback. Not everyone was qualified to ring the bell in the Master-Teacher Pavilion. In the entire Tianwu Kingdom, only the Pavilion Master and the other two two-star Master Teachers wielded the rights to do so. However, given that the three of them were here, what in the world was going on? Something urgent must have cropped up. Let's hurry back to take a look. A grave look appeared on Elder Zhu's face. Pavilion Master Jiang nodded. Without any hesitation, he led the group of Master Teachers gathered here back to the Master Teacher Pavilion as quickly as possible. Let's go over and take a look as well. Mo Tianxue and the others also followed them back to the Master Teacher Pavilion. The Master Teacher Pavilion was the foundation of a kingdom. Without their support, putting aside the fact that the kingdom's tier might be lowered, it would also make the kingdom more prone to attacks. At this moment, the sound of the bell reverberated through the entire capital, attracting the attention of countless people. Even Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi were taken aback. The Master Teacher Pavilion is summoning us, let's go over as well. Mo Hongyi said grimly. Zhang Xian nodded. Teacher Lu Chong hurried forward. Find Mu Xueqing and the others, and bring them to the Master Teacher Pavilion. Knowing Lu Chong's intentions, Zhang Xian immediately issued him some instructions. Initially, they had agreed on finishing the examination tomorrow. However, since that Mo Hongyi had recovered, and he was going to head there anyway, Zhang Xian didn't mind finishing the examination today so that he could be promoted to a two-star Master Teacher. Not daring to dawdle, Pavilion Master Jiang and the others rushed straight back. It didn't take them too long to arrive at the Master Teacher Pavilion. As soon as they stepped into the guild, an apprentice quickly walked up to them. Pavilion Master, Elder Zhu, what happened? Jiang Shu looked at him with a deep frown sitting on his forehead. The headquarters sent 2 envoys overseeing that there isn't a single Master Teacher here. They instructed me to ring the assembly bell. The apprentice explained. Envoys from the headquarters? Gedeng, Pavilion Master Zhang's heart skipped a beat. Bring me over quickly. Upon walking into the main hall, he saw 2 elders seated at the very top of the room. You're Jiang Shu. Before Jiang Shu could reply, an elder stroked his beard and introduced themselves. I am Su Fan, and this is Ling Yuheng. We're from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion. Su Fan. Ling Yuheng. Pavilion Master Jiang was stunned for a moment before a jolt shot through his entire body. Disbelief shone in his eyes. The 4-star Master Teachers of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Su Shi and Ling Shi. Even though Jiang Shu had never been to the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's capital before, Su Shi and Ling Shi were names that all Master Teachers within the Myriad Kingdom Alliance were familiar with. Could they be those 2 legendary figures? Why would they visit Tianwu Kingdom personally? Hee hee. That's us. Chuckling, the duo nodded slightly. Their movements and words weren't excessive, and they exuded an extremely peaceful and tranquil feeling. The crowd didn't feel the slightest bit of pressure or intimidation from them. Upon hearing their words, the faces of Elder Zhu and the others turned pale, and they nearly fainted on the spot. They were legendary figures who were said to possess the capability to turn stone into gold, and the destructive might to crush mountains and split rivers. Under such rumors, the group subconsciously felt that they lived in a completely different world from the duo. Yet, to think that there would come a day where they would be talking harmoniously. Initially, they were still slightly intrigued about the ringing of the assembly bell. This bell was usually used for emergencies, and only the 2-star Master Teachers had the right to ring it. As 4-star Master Teachers, the duo was more than qualified to ring the assembly bell. However, as 4-star Master Teachers, the duo was indeed more than qualified to ring the assembly bell. There's no need to get nervous. The purpose of our visit is to look for Zhang Xian. Seeing the stiff expressions on the crowd, Su Shi chuckled lightly. His voice was as gentle as a spring wind, and subconsciously, the stiffened bodies of the crowd relaxed, and their tension disappeared. Impartation of heaven's will. Incredible, sensing the visible changes in their bodies, the crowd was filled with awe for the duo. To dispel their nervousness with a single word, surely they would be able to render them powerless with another. The might of a 4-star master teacher was indeed fearsome. Zhang Xian. Heaving a sigh of relief, Pavilion Master Jiang asked doubtfully. Given how easily that Yang Shi did so, not to mention, during the fight between the Crimson Tiger and Jiang Shu, he was still on the back of an aerial savage beast, the other party's eye of discernment was simply way too formidable. That's right. Jiang Shu nodded. Honestly, he was filled with earnest respect and admiration for Yang Shi. After cultivating the improved cultivation technique that the other party gave him, not only did he recover from his hidden trauma, he could even vaguely sense that he was going to achieve a breakthrough in his cultivation soon. No matter how foolish one was, it would be clear to them that this was all Yang Shi's work. With just a casual pointer, he was able to induce such massive effects. Given that Zhang Shi was his direct disciple, he must have undergone personal tutelage from the other party on a daily basis. Under such circumstances, it wasn't unimaginable for him to be capable of such incredible feats. Is that Yang Shi still in the capital? Can you bring me to pay him a visit? Recovering from his shock, Su Shi couldn't help but ask. Even though he had never heard of Yang Xian, given how the other party managed to groom an outstanding student like Zhang Xian and induce such a huge improvement in Jiang Shu with just a few casual pointers, his ranking as a master teacher must definitely be above theirs. If they could meet and interact with him, they would definitely benefit greatly from the exchange. Teacher is currently in the capital, but he is often out. If the two elders wish to meet him, please allow me to first report the matter to him first. Jiang Shu hurriedly replied. Even though his teacher was in the capital, he was often out of the residence. Also, without teacher's permission, he didn't dare to bring anyone else over, even if the people he was bringing over were 4-star master teachers. Will be troubling Pavilion Master Jiang then, Su Shi nodded. Just as he was about to continue speaking, Elder Zhu, who had gone out a while ago to settle a few matters, suddenly rushed back anxiously. Su Shi, Ling Shi, and Pavilion Master, Zhang Shi and Mo Hongyi have returned and they are currently at the examination hall. It seems like they have decided to end the examination in advance. Pavilion Master Jiang froze. It has only been a few days since the examination started, and they have already succeeded in inducing a trust level of 40 among their students in their disguised identity? The last test of the 2-star master teacher examination was for them to assume the role of a teacher under another identity and raise the trust level of their student in them to 40 within 10 days. It hadn't even been 7 days, and they were already here. Could it be that their students' trust levels in them had already reached 40? That Zhang Xian is here too. Hearing the conversation, Su Shi looked over and asked, "What's going on?" "It's like this," Pavilion Master Jiang explained the situation in detail. There were several hundred types of 2-star master teacher examinations depending on the guild one was in. This was precisely the reason why all of the 1-star master teacher in the guild, and this was including Principal Xia, didn't know that the examination for the duo was to conceal their identity and teach at Tianwu Academy. So that's the case. I am also quite interested to see how high the trust level Zhang Xian's students have in him under his disguise. After comprehending the situation, Su Shi nodded, turned his head to the side, and asked, "Ling Shi, do you want to come along as well?" Ling Shi smiled, "I am fine with going over as well, but we have to make some preparations beforehand. As 4-star master teachers, our arrival will surely cause a huge uproar, and the results of the examination might be affected. So, you all shouldn't immediately reveal our identities when we arrive in the examination hall later on." As 4-star master teachers, the two of them possessed esteemed standing. Even the emperor would have to welcome them personally with utmost respect in deference to their position. If news of their arrival were to spread out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. There was a great possibility that it might affect the accuracy of the results of the test. Jiang Shu and the others nodded in agreement. Since these two had spoken, who would dare to refute them? The group headed straight for the examination hall, and before they could enter, they could already hear a huge commotion in the area. Why did the bell suddenly ring? I've no idea. Maybe someone is going to take the master-teacher examination. However, there doesn't seem to be anything here though. Impossible. Back then, when Zhang Shi and Mo Shi were taking the examination, I was here, and the bell wasn't rung then. Pushing the door open, they immediately saw a huge crowd before them. It was the group who had gathered at the entrance of the Lin clan previously. Mo Tianxue, Mu Yangfeng, many esteemed figures of Tianwu Kingdom were within the crowd. They had all rushed here upon hearing the bell to join in with the commotion, but due to the various restrictions of the Master-Teacher Pavilion, they could only wait here. Even until now, they had no idea what was going on. Pavilion Master Jiang is here. Pavilion Master Jiang, what happened? Upon seeing the group walk in, someone among the crowd shouted. Of the group, the most conspicuous person was Pavilion Master Jiang. No one paid any heed to Su Shi and Mo Shi, who were standing at the back. Besides, even if they were to notice them, they wouldn't recognize them anyway. The Myriad Kingdom alliance was simply too far away, and Su Shi and Ling Shi were figures way beyond them. Pavilion Master Jiang also only managed to recognize them after their introduction. Something did happen, but there's no need to panic. You will all know soon enough. Pavilion Master Jiang shook his hands casually before turning around to discreetly issue some instructions to Elder Zhu. As soon as the trust level of Zhang Xian and Mo Hongyi students reach a minimum of 40, he would announce their true identity instantly. In a sense, this could be considered as a huge matter. However, he couldn't say anything about it now. If not, it might affect the final result. After being delegated with some tasks, Elder Zhu backed down, and soon, he led two people in. While he wasn't mediocre, his feats wouldn't impress anyone there. Lu Laoshi, it's your turn. Now that Mo Hongyi had passed, the eyes of Pavilion Master Jiang and the other master teachers immediately centered on Zhang Xian. All right. Stretching his back lazily, Zhang Xian nodded and smiled. If I recall correctly, as long the trust level of a student of mine reaches 40, I would have passed the examination, right? He seemed to recall that a single student was sufficient for the test. If so, there was no need to trouble the rest of them. Indeed. Pavilion Master Jiang nodded. All right. You enter. Surveying the crowd, Zhang Xian casually pointed. After several days of interaction with his class, he was confident that the trust level of any single of his students would definitely exceed 40. Since that was the case, there was no need to intentionally cause a ruckus. Cough cough. At times like this, it was best to maintain a low profile. Of course, if Mou and the others were to know his thoughts, they would definitely faint on the spot. Low profile? How in the world do you fit that image? It will already be a miracle if you don't flip the entire world upside down. Yes, teacher. A student walked into the House of Trust. He's Zhang Xian. After Zhang Xian's student walked into the room, the two 4-star master teachers from the headquarters immediately turned their attention to Zhang Xian. The scene they saw in the record crystal was simply too shocking. They were curious to see if this young man could create another miracle this time. He seems quite confident. Just that, I wonder what his results will be. Stroking his beard, a contemplative look appeared on Su Shi's face. 30 years ago, our guild also used the same test for the 2-star master teacher examination. I recall that there's a genius who managed to induce a trust level of 65 in his student. Nostalgia filled Ling Shi's eyes. 61. Seeing the number, Su Shi and Ling Shi glanced at one another, and a look of disappointment flickered across their faces. They bore high hopes for this youngster who had made many new records, but from the looks of it now, they seemed to have overestimated the other party. 61 is a decent score, but he's still a little lacking to compete with those geniuses. Su Shi shook his head. Indeed. Ling Shi agreed. A trust level of 60 was already equivalent to the relationship between parent and child. Zhang Xian's record was far beyond that of Mo Hongyi, but he still failed to meet the expectations of the two 4-star master teachers. This is a pass, right? Oblivious to the disappointment of the duo, Zhang Xian turned to Pavilion Master Jiang and asked. It's a pass. Pavilion Master Jiang nodded. It was a pass as long as the trust level of their student reached 40. 61 was already an extremely high score. Upon seeing Zhang Xian's result, a bitter smile flashed across Mo Hongyi's face. Given how his records were completely overthrown by Zhang Xian previously, even though he knew it was unlikely, he still bore some expectations that he might triumph over him this time around. However, it seemed like he was being too naive. He was truly a far match from this genius. Wait a minute. Lu Laoshi, isn't your best student Mu Xueqing and Lu Chong? Who's this student? Why haven't I met him before? Even though Zhang Xian had passed, Pavilion Master Jiang still couldn't help but ask in bewilderment. Based on the news he got, Zhang Xian should be the closest to Mu Xueqing and Lu Chong, so their trust level should be the highest of his students. The candidates were allowed to pick any student for the test, but usually, one would pick the student they were closest with. Pavilion Master Jiang had been keeping tabs on the examination, but he hadn't seen or heard of this person. Thus, he was perplexed as to why Zhang Xian would send this student forward. Could it be that he had cared for this student more than the others privately, allowing his trust level to reach 61? Upon hearing those words, the crowd also suddenly realized the peculiarity of this issue. Thus, they turned their sights to Zhang Xian, curious to listen to his explanation. You've never met him before? Not expecting the other party to ask such a question, Zhang Xian scratched his head. Allow me to introduce him then. This is, halfway through, an awkward look surfaced on Zhang Xian's face. He hurriedly turned to look at the student who walked out from the House of Trust and asked, that my apologies, but I don't remember your name. May I ask how I should address you, Putong? Putong. As soon as Zhang Xian said those words, the crowd immediately fell to the ground. They felt the world spinning around them, and they nearly keeled over on the spot. Even Su Shi and Ling Shi, who were shaking their heads in disappointment a moment ago, had the corner of their lips twitching. Are you for real? A student who has a trust level of 61 toward you, and you don't even know his name. To earn the trust of their students, most teachers would treat them as though their friend and use all kinds of means to win their goodwill. Yet, you despite conducting lessons for them for so long, you don't even know his name. More importantly, the other party actually had a trust level of 61 toward you. In other words, you're as close to him as his parents. The heck? Everyone hurriedly turned to the student. Your teacher doesn't even know who you are, and yet, you possess such deep trust in him, even moving your clan to stand against the Lin clan for him. Why? Reporting to teacher, IMGE. Teacher once offered me some pointers, solving the problem of my blocked meridians on the left side of my body. Upon hearing his teacher's question, the young man immediately replied with an agitated look. GE. Zhang Xian scratched his head in confusion. He really hadn't heard of this name before. Since this is the tradition of the Master-Teacher Pavilion, we shan't impose on you all then. In any case, being able to personally witness a trust level of 99 between a student and teacher and the unveiling of Lu Laoshi's true identity as Zhang Shi, this trip isn't wasted. Knowing the meaning behind the other party's words, the crowd bade their farewells. The reason why they came here was to uncover the reason behind the ringing of the assembly bell. Being able to witness the final proceedings of the 2-star master-teacher examination made this trip one worth taking. Today's matter would surely spread across the 13 surrounding kingdoms in the fastest time possible. Zhang Xian would soon become the idol of countless people. Soon, only the master-teachers were left in the examination hall. Zhang Shi and Mo Shi, since you two have passed the 2-star master-teacher examination, then going by our traditions, we'll have to bring you all to the ancestors to seek their recognition, as well as to explain the responsibilities and duties of a master-teacher to the two of you. Let's head to the teacher acknowledgement hall together. After the crowd left, Pavilion Master Jiang started speaking. Aware of this rule, Zhang Xian nodded. Then, following behind Pavilion Master Jiang, he headed out of the examination hall. The teacher acknowledgement hall wasn't too far away from the examination hall. In just a few footsteps, the group reached their destination. Countless ancestral tablets filled the room, and a massive statue stood at the very center of the room. Holding onto a scroll in his hands, he had an imposing appearance. This, catching sight of the tablet, Zhang Xian's head jolted. Confusion blinked into his eyes. It's that old geezer. He just met that man this morning, right after he was conferred as a celestial master teacher. Not only did the other party pull him into an illusion, he even demanded him to become his student. Back then, Zhang Xian rejected him flatly. To think that there would be a statue of him in the teacher acknowledgement hall. Who's this old geezer? Is he the previous pavilion master? Why would the statue of this shameless fellow be placed here? Recalling how the other party tried to do him in secretly, Zhang Xian felt a little frustrated. Turning to Pavilion Master Jiang, he pointed to the statue and questioned righteously. What in the world was this? The teacher acknowledgement hall was such an important location, yet the statue of that despicable old geezer was actually placed here. Wasn't this way too inappropriate? Old geezer. Pavilion Master Jiang, Su Shi, Ling Shi, and the few other master teachers tagging along turned pale, and they nearly fainted on the spot. This was Kong Shi, the greatest teacher in history. No matter who it was, even if one was a 9-star master teacher, one would have to bow to him with utmost respect. Yet, to address him as old geezer, the heck. You must be mad. Audacious. Fling his sleeves, Su Shi roared furiously. I'm speaking the truth. This fellow assaulted me. Upon recalling that sight, Zhang Xian couldn't help but feel frustrated. Just as he was about to continue speaking, he suddenly froze. Turning to Su Shi with a doubtful gaze, he asked, Who are you? Where did you come from? Is this your place to speak? There were a total of 13 1-star master teachers and 3 2-star master teachers in Tianwu Kingdom. Adding Mo Hongyi and him, there was a total of 5 2-star master teachers now. Zhang Xian had met all of them before, and other than them, there was no one who could match up to his current standing in Tianwu Kingdom. The hierarchy among master teachers was strict, and lower-ranked master teachers weren't allowed to talk back to higher-ranked ones. Didn't this old fellow know that he was a 2-star master teacher? Wasn't he afraid of being charged with insubordination? Pavilion Master Jiang, Vice Pavilion Master Guan, Elder Zhu, and the others tugged at their head in frenzy. Criticizing Kong Shi as a shameless, old geezer was already sufficient to send everyone into a frenzy. And yet, now you're criticizing a 4-star master teacher in public? All of the master teachers who followed along felt as though they were going mad. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly before the 2 4-star master teachers for fear of incurring their displeasure. Yet, this fellow criticized one of them to his face. Do you need to be so courageous? Don't worry. Su Shi and I came from afar, and Pavilion Master Jiang hasn't introduced us yet. So, it's natural for Zhang Shi to not recognize us. Sensing the awkwardness in the atmosphere, Ling Shi spoke up. Master teachers needed to have a disposition and attitude befitting of their positions. They had concealed their identity intentionally, so it wasn't surprising for the other party to not know the truth. Seeing how respectful your tone is, I'll forgive you this time around. Zhang Xian nodded. Given the earnest attitude of the other party, Zhang Xian couldn't be bothered to pursue this matter either. Cough cough. Upon seeing that his words had earned him the forgiveness of the other party, Ling Shi immediately choked on his saliva. Given that the other party didn't know their identity, he couldn't be blamed for his lack of respect. Thus, instead of dawdling on the issue, Su Shi began to introduce the statue. I was rash just now. Once I introduce the person the statue is modeled after, you will understand the reason behind my words. In the teacher acknowledgement hall, even 9-star master teachers were only given the rights to have their names marked on the ancestral tablets. Yet, the massive statue is placed right in the center of the hall. Can't you guess his identity? His identity. Zhang Xian was taken aback. Only 6-star master teachers have 100% possibility of being acknowledged. However, the number of tablets that fall for them would be a completely different matter. Pavilion Master Jiang nodded. Even though they didn't have any master teachers beyond 2-star in their guild, this was all basic knowledge. As the Pavilion Master, he was well aware of such details. This Zhang Xian finally understood the difficulty of the matter. A 6-star master teacher was a powerful expert whose stomp could cause an entire region to tremble regardless of where he went. Even the entire Myriad Kingdom alliance could be easily destroyed before the might of such a figure. Yet, one had to reach such a level before there was 100% chance they could be acknowledged. From this, the difficulty of the matter was clear to see. Receiving the acknowledgement from the ancestors is an honor. Those who received the acknowledgement of more ancestors tended to be more talented, and most of them went on to achieve great things in the future. The most famous genius in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, Jun Ruohuan, managed to pass the 4-star master teacher examination before reaching his 30s, and his feat became a legend among the master teachers in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Back then, when he passed his 2-star master teacher examination, he earned the acknowledgement from 7 of the tablets. Su Shi turned to look at Zhang Xian and smiled. If the greatest genius in Tianwu Kingdom was Zhang Xian, then Jun Ruohuan was, indubitably, the number 1 genius of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Becoming a 4-star master teacher under 30? Zhang Xian was astounded. All of the master teachers he knew were mostly in their 70s and 80s. Under such a trend, to be able to pass the 4-star master teacher examination below 30 was indeed a formidable feat, and it bore testimony to the other party's talents. In comparison to him, even the number 1 genius of Tianwu Kingdom Mo Hongyi lost his radiance. The further one progressed as a master teacher, the more difficult the examinations became, the greater the demand on one's soul depth. Many talented experts ended up being stuck at 3-star for their entire life, unable to take the final leap to become a 4-star master teacher. Based on the classification of the guild headquarters, one was considered a primary master teacher from 1-star to 3-star, an intermediate master teacher from 4-star to 6-star, and an advanced master teacher from 7-star to 9-star. There was a huge gap in standing between 3-star to 4-star. It was as though the distance between Tongxian realm and Zhongshe realm, and ordinary people couldn't hope to make the leap. There's no need for you two to feel pressured about this. It's best to be acknowledged, but if not, there is no need for you two to worry. For the past 300 years, there hasn't been a person who succeeded before. All I hope is for a single exception to happen while I am still the pavilion master so that I can brag about it when I visit the other pavilions. Pavilion Master Jiang smiled bitterly. Zhang Xian nodded. He was initially a little tense over the matter, but after learning that it wasn't necessary, he heaved a sigh of relief. But that was to be expected. Different master teachers had different expectations. It was possible for a talented master teacher to not meet the eyes of any of the ancestors. Besides, the owners of those tablets had already turned into dust, and all that was left of them was just a lingering will. It shouldn't be a big deal even if one failed to win their acknowledgement. Mo sure, you should go first. After explaining the entire matter, Pavilion Master Jiang beckoned Mo Hongyi forward. Yes. Mo Hongyi nodded. There was a grim look on his face. Back then, when he was still a one-star master teacher, he failed to earn the acknowledgement of any of the ancestors. After confirming the identity of the green aura, Zhang Xian couldn't help but shake his head. When he became a celestial master teacher, the green aura was as thick as billowing smoke, but the surge shrouding Mo Hongyi was only around the thickness of a finger. This was just like the difference between a raging river and a small stream. Who? In a few breaths, Mo Hongyi managed to absorb it cleanly. Delight showed clearly on Mo Hongyi's face as he stood up. He couldn't suppress the exhilaration in his heart. Even though only one ancestral tablet had fallen for him, he had at least won the acknowledgement of a single ancestor. With this, he had broken the record of the Tianwu Kingdom Master Teacher Pavilion for the past few centuries. Incredible. As expected of the X-1 genius of our kingdom. Finally, one of our master teachers is acknowledged. Good. That old fellow Zhao Shui won't be able to brag about this matter before me anymore. Upon seeing this sight, Pavilion Master Jiang, Elder Zhu, and the others couldn't help but exclaim excitedly. None of the master teachers in Tianwu Kingdom had ever earned the acknowledgement of the ancestors before. Seeing this sight before them, they couldn't hold back their agitation anymore. Not bad. To earn the acknowledgement of an ancestor as a 2-star master teacher, you have a bright future in front of you. Even I only managed to earn their acknowledgement upon reaching 3-star. Su Shi nodded in approval. Being approved at 3-star is already an incredible feat. I only managed to have a single tablet fall for me after becoming a 4-star master teacher. Seems like the talent of Mo Shi is indeed incredible. Ling Shi chuckled. Even Su Shi and Ling Shi failed to be recognized when they were still 2-star master teachers. From this, the difficulty of this trial was clear to see. Alright, now that Mo Shi has obtained the approval of an ancestor, Zhang Shi, it's your turn. Recovering from his shock, Pavilion Master Jiang turned to Zhang Xian. The crowd immediately turned their attention to Zhang Xian as well. His complexion immediately turned awful. Knowing that it was too late for him to avoid, he hurriedly stood up and faced it head-on. Pang! His fist and the statue collided together. On top of being a Zhongshi realm pinnacle expert, Zhang Xian possessed a physical strength of 9,999 ding. No matter how resilient the Kongshi statue was, it was made of mud, so how could it withstand the might of his fist? Boom! It exploded from the center. Walala! The moment Kongshi's statue was broke apart, the sound of beans popping sounded, and the ancestral tablets in the room hurriedly fell down. Then, Jia! Jia! The entire teacher acknowledgement hall began to shake as well. Escape! Pavilion Master Zhang's face paled, and he hurriedly shouted. Then, he darted out of the hall with the group of master teachers. Not daring to hesitate at all, Zhang Xian also dashed out. The moment he left the room, boom, the grand hall collapsed inward. Dust flew in the air, and smoke billowed. This what the heck just happened? Pavilion Master Jiang and the other master teachers were completely dumbfounded. They hurriedly turned to the stunned youngster standing not too far away, and an urge to strangle him to death welled up within them. When other people paid respect to the ancestors, they either got acknowledged or ignored. Yet, when it was his turn, not only did he destroy Kongshi's statue, he even tore down the entire teacher acknowledge hall. What was wrong with you? Kongshi is the world's teacher, an existence whom everyone respects. Even if his statue was going to fall on you, shouldn't you at least support him? To face him with a fist, what was going through your head? To make a move on Kongshi, that is enough of you. All of the master teachers felt a spell of dizziness. The young man before them stared at the ruins, and scratching his head, he asked, "This have I been acknowledged?" Acknowledged? Remember, being a master teacher isn't an honor or a standing, it's a responsibility and a duty. A true master teacher should always have his students' welfare in his mind. Only by fulfilling our role will we be acknowledged and respected by others. After delegating his instructions, Pavilion Master Jiang shook his hands casually and said, "All right, I've already said all that I need to. Let's go to the main hall, I'll introduce you two to Su Shi and Ling Shi." The duo answered, and the three of them headed to the main hall of the Master Teacher Pavilion. No one noticed a slight unique aura slowly seeping out from each of the innumerable ancestral tablets and Kong Shi's statue. Gathering together, they formed a huge torrent. However, as there wasn't anyone to accept it, it slowly dissipated with time, as though it had never appeared before. Chapter 398, Rejection of the Ancestors, Sorrowful Chimes of the Bell in the Conference Hall of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion. I believe that everyone should know of the matter. I hope that you all can try your best so that our name won't be sullied. The austere elder seated on the center seat gestured grandly. The head of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's Master Teacher Pavilion, 4-star Pinnacle Master Teacher, Pavilion Master Kong Gon. Pavilion Master, rest assured. We will do our best to find the most suitable candidate so as to not sully the name of our Myriad Kingdom Alliance. I've been informed that Elder Su and Elder Ling heard of a genius in Xianyuan Kingdom. They rushed there a few days ago. Elder Bai and Elder Lu heard that there's a genius who passed the Master Teacher examination at Qiyuan Kingdom, and they rushed there 8 days ago as well. The elders in the hall hurriedly answered. These elders were dressed in the robe specially crafted for master teachers, and an emblem sat on their chest, reflecting their ranks. There were several 4-star master teachers in the hall, and even the weakest of those present was a 2-star. The radiance that shone off their emblems was dazzling. Good. Make preparations in advance to welcome and groom them. In the past, our Myriad Kingdom Alliance's ranking has always been at the very bottom. This time, we must show them that our geniuses don't lose out to them in any way. The Pavilion Master harumphed. The crowd nodded. Just as they were about to continue discussing, a bell suddenly sounded. It carried deep sorrow in its chiming, as though something tragic had happened. Dong 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 dong. Then, innumerable bells started sounding as well. What's going on? Pavilion Master Kong abruptly stood up. That direction, the teacher acknowledgement hall. Ascertaining the direction where the sound came from, a master teacher's face suddenly distorted in shock, and he exclaimed loudly. Let's go take a look. Pavilion Master Kong and the others immediately rushed out and headed straight for the Master Teacher Pavilion. Upon pushing open the door, what welcomed them was the sight of countless ancestral tablets shaking non-stop, and sorrowful calls sounded from them, as though they had met with something tragic. At the same time, surge after surge of bizarre aura circled around those tablets, and the deep rumbling of thunder roared from their movements. This is rejection of the ancestors, sorrowful chimes of the bell. Pavilion Master Kang's face changed, and he nearly fell to the floor. Rejection of the ancestors? What does this mean? Seeing Pavilion Master Kang's loss of composure, one of the master teachers couldn't help but ask. After passing the master teacher examination, one would head to the teacher acknowledgement hall to pay respects to the ancestor and seek their acknowledgement. Many people take pride in being acknowledged by the ancestors. Pavilion Master Kong started explaining. The crowd nodded. This was common knowledge among master teachers. The greater the number of ancestors who acknowledged one when one was a lower-tiered master teacher, the more likely it was for one to climb to greater heights in the future. This should be something for master teachers to take pride in. As master teachers, you all should know that while teachers can choose their students, students are allowed to choose their teachers as well. At this point, slight disbelief flashed in the eyes of Pavilion Master Kong, and he clenched his fists tightly. The ancestors can acknowledge their descendants, but at the same time their acknowledgement can be rejected as well. Rejected? The acknowledgement of the ancestors isn't just an honor, it also grants a unique aura that raises one's soul depth. There's actually a person who would reject it. Taken aback by Pavilion Master Kang's words, the crowd widened their eyes in shock. Pay a visit to Yangshi. The corner of Zhang Xian's lip twitched, and he nearly fainted on the spot. What Yangshi, the teacher behind him, was Zhang Xian himself. The two 4-star master teachers were interested in meeting Yangshi. What should he do? It had already taken him a lot of effort to fool Jiang Shu. This time, the other party were 4-star master teachers. It wouldn't be a simple feat to fool them. It was possible that they might even be able to see through his disguising ability. Why? Is it not convenient? Su Shi asked. That isn't the case, just that my teacher has always been wandering around the area. So, even I'm not too sure where he is, Zhang Xian hurriedly added. How about this, I'll ask him of this matter as soon as he appears. I'll be depending on Zhang Shi then. Su Shi smiled. Even though they were both 4-star master teachers, they didn't have any domineering aura to them. Instead, they felt particularly amiable. It was said that the higher ranked a master teacher was, the more they would be like that. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to earn the trust and acknowledgement of their students swiftly, and better impart their knowledge. Alright, now that you two are done with your examinations, I won't beat around the bush. Actually, there are 2 reasons why Ling Shi and I are here. Firstly, it's because of Zhang Shi's astonishing examination results, so we came over to take a look. Other than that, we have something that we might need your help on. Upon seeing Zhang Xian agree to the matter, Su Shi stroked his beard and spoke of the primary reason for their arrival. Su Shi, feel free to speak. If it's within the abilities of Tianwu Kingdom's Master Teacher Pavilion, we'll definitely give it our all. Pavilion Master Jiang said. Putting aside the fact that the other party was his superior, the other party's rank as a 4-star master teacher made him more than qualified to command them.